So guys, if you haven't seen the latest Fox underwater film, which was a challenge special featuring Mr. Mark Pitchers himself, where have you been? I, as an angler, took so much from it. I learned quite a lot from the underwater video. So we sat down with Mark, with the Fox community group, and the community could ask Mark pretty much anything they wanted regarding the underwater shoot. We had Kieran available as well, who was one of the Fox divers on the day. So we take it away with Mark and Kieran answering some of the awesome questions that the community put to them. So we'll flip back to that Q&A session with Mark and Kieran.
His fire starter thing he did. Oh, that was pretty cool.
Who?
Mozzers.
Haven't seen that.
I think Ben showed me it. Fire starter. Mozzers fire starter.
Fire starter.
It was cool as fuck. I liked it.
What, today?
Just random. It was cool.
Oh, what he does normally at like the beginning of his stories.
Yeah, on Wednesday
It was cool.
Oh.
Right, we've got 1 minute, boys.
1 minute. Cool little video he did.
So he's taken a wig
Oh,
with
he
him.
does all sorts of props. Getting a microphone the other morning was emceeing into it.
Not now. Well, maybe now.
That's good. I do like that.
Yeah, I want to be live. Are you
That would be
rolling?
pretty
Yeah?
cool. Cameras are rolling, mate.
Oh, could have said.
Time lapse going. We've got 2 cameras rolling and Facebook Live.
Life is good.
Right, you ready?
Yes, let's fire it up.
3, 2, 1. We are live.
Oof.
So obviously we have just launched the Underwater Challenge. So we'd suggest that the questions are probably about that film.
Hopefully no one's seen it.
Quite a few people have seen
Oh,
it.
that's a shame.
No, it's been a good vibe. I watched it. I really enjoyed it. I took a lot away from it myself, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the public did as well. So if there's any questions, guys, you want to put to Mark, let us know in the comments.
Have we got any underwater questions yet?
Have we? Is any questions coming through, Ben?
Who picks the venue for the underwater videos?
There you go.
There we go.
Who was that? Who?
Kirk Worthing.
Kirk? Is that the first underwater?
No. First was Kyle Shears.
No, first underwater question.
Oh, first, yeah.
Okay, so was it Kyle, did you say?
Kirk. Mr. Worthing.
Sorry.
Hi, Kirk. I do know you.
Kirk
How are you,
Worthing.
buddy?
So that means Kirk wins a nice little bundle.
It does, yeah. Congratulations, well done. What was the question?
Who picks the venues
Oh.
for the underwater?
Oh, not me.
Not
I have
you.
absolutely no say whatsoever in anything that
No.
happens in a challenge, if I'm honest. It's Harry, isn't it?
Harry, Adam as well, who's one of the other divers.
Oh, for the
He has
underwater,
venue.
yeah, of course, yeah.
So, yeah, between us, we get suggestions from everyone, really. We're looking for clear venues. So if we find one, we'll go have a look at it and then make a decision based on water quality, if we can see, because obviously that is the most important thing.
Yeah, so if you
And-
have any venues you'd like to put forward, ones that are clear and full of big uns,
Yeah,
then
but it does need to be gin clear. Like we
Yeah.
need really good clarity. Not just you can see a little bit in the margins. It does need to be a very clear venue, like the one we're at today.
Yep, good visibility, even down to, what, 7 feet? You got any? What's the
We're
deepest?
at
You got
6.5 feet is
6.5.
where the cameras are at the minute.
Yeah,
And yeah, we've got good visibility across 2 different cameras.
Cool. I've got one come through here now from Ryan Lawton. He asks, will Mark consider how much he uses the blowback rig, considering how often he was done on the underwater film?
it's a good question. Yeah, I'll take it into consideration, but I won't really change much, to be honest. I always said
You wouldn't change much about that rig, or
Yeah.
Would
the only
you
thing I would
use-
change would be the length.
would
I
you
would-
use a different rig?
No, well, here I am fishing what was starting life as an underwater film. I'm now filming something separate and I'm using a blowback rig.
Mm-hmm.
I've caught so many fish on it, and I've always said from day one, the fish are picking you up and ejecting that rig successfully so many times. I've always known it. As someone who floater fishes as much as I do, I pay no attention to the hook bait whatsoever. I fish with extra large bolt bubbles with a short hook link, only around a foot to 18 inches. And the amount of times them fish come up and take the hook bait, you see the hook bait go down and pop back up. The amount of times that happens, that's why I pay no attention whatsoever to the hook bait. The amount of times that happens before one finally just erupts on the surface and bolts off, it must be like a dozen times on occasions. And you think the same thing is happening down there.
Yeah.
The exact same thing is happening on the bottom. That fish will pick it up, eject it, pick it up, eject it. And one time it pick it up and it won't be able to eject it. So I've always known it's happened.
Yeah.
And the amount of fish I've caught over the years, obviously you wouldn't go into these underwater shoots and take nothing away from it. That's just been, well, it's been a little bit silly, isn't it?
It is.
You know, it's been silly and it's been stubborn. So, you know, you want to take away, every time I go fishing is a learning day. Every single time I go fishing, I can take something away and I can apply it into similar situations going forward. I always want to learn.
So what was your takeaway from that rig?
Takeaway from that, so the rig itself, yes, it got done. You're getting done on all rigs. You are getting done. There is no magic rig that will completely eliminate it. The 360 rig is it's a very good rig when it comes to anti-ejection properties, which I did end up using. I had one pickup and it resulted in a fish. It's a shame we couldn't have had a 360 rig next to a blowback rig, fishing alongside. That's the only way you can really make a comparison, really.
Yeah. But it was a very different scenario where we used the 360
It
rig,
was,
wasn't
yeah.
it?
It was being hand placed and dropped in the edge on a real short rig, and that, and it's a nice little trap. But I have used the 360 rig since then and had hook poles on it, whereas I've never, in over, was it 2.5 years now of using a blowback rig with them wide gape long shanks, I've yet to have a hook pole on that. Yet to. I have started using 360s since that underwater and had hook poles. But you could argue, because it is so effective at its hooking properties, it nicks them. It nicks them in places where a blowback rig maybe wouldn't nick them. So you are pricking them, you are catching hold, but the nicking just in like the corner of the mouth, or just to say nicking them,
Potentially
and then
you
you're
are
coming off.
getting more pickups because of that rig.
Yeah.
But in result, you will probably lose more.
That's what I'm saying.
Because you're getting more pickups.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's pricking them where a blowback rig perhaps isn't, but it's only just to say nicking them and then they're coming off. So I'd rather not have that happen in the first place, to be honest.
So changes to the
blowback
rig.
So shorter rigs. I think I used to use about 8 inches. Now they're shortened down to, I wouldn't quite say PVA bag length, but a little bit more, like 5 inches in length. And since that video, whereas a leg clip used to be my go-to lead arrangement, it's drop-off in line every time now. Just much
Then
more
have you been
impact.
using a drop-off in line in
Every
your
session,
fishing?
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, every session since then.
What do you think is the mechanics then? Why shorten the rig to make it into a hooked fish? What is the difference between
This had
the 10 and a 5, if you like?
So on that underwater video, you saw the amount of times it would pick it up, and it's surprising how much it actually lifts off the lake bed. Obviously, even on a 7-8 inch hook link, it's going down quite close, and it is moving sort of 6-7 inches right in itself, and nothing's happening. It's not tightening up to lead. I mean, the most riggy water I've ever fished was Strawberry Fields in Kent back in the day. I went on there trying to catch a second £50 common when there was only 2 £50 commons in the country. And there you were getting literally 2-inch lifts on the bobbins, and the bobbin was not settling back down. So you knew something was happening. Yeah. But on that occasion, we're getting 2-inch lifts, and the leads were being pulled out of the inserts. They were dropping off, and you were getting done. And I shortened down to something that was less than 3 inches long. It was like a short PVA bag rig. It was tiny. And you think back then, I was fishing for a 50-pounder as well. Yeah. I was fishing hook links just that big with small hooks, heavy leads. I was using 5-ounce leads back then with a tiny hook link, small hooks, and little tiny baits. I was using like 8mm discs of Pepper Army and just setting little traps.
Old school.
I went on from getting done, coming away with a blank and getting done, to then turning it round and coming away with 4, 5, 6 fish a trip on a really notoriously riggy lake, and fishing for a fish that was only a once-a-year fish, and I caught that on my 3rd trip. Actually, it was maybe 2 or 3 times a year, but yeah, I caught that on my third trip, and I wasn't getting any little lifts or bleeps or anything. They were just absolute screamers.
Wow.
Do you think there's a trade-off between shortening your rig and losing more fish or having more hook pulls?
Yeah, I think, you know what, because I think it is venue and scenario dependent. So, for example, if I was going abroad, European fishing for fish which aren't as pressured in the UK, I don't think there is any need for that. I almost think it's good to give them a bit more rope to hang themselves, if you like. So if I was going abroad, fishing for relatively unpressured fish, I would go back to what I normally do with a 8-inch, 9-inch, maybe even 10-inch hook link, blowback rig, exactly the same. Would still use the inline leads for the maximum sort of impact, but I think shortening that rig, I would do it on pressured waters where the fish are sort of picking it up, and you saw on the video there was quite a few occasions when they pick it up and they just have it in the mouth and they weren't moving off. They weren't
moving very
off.
slowly.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, it's different because I'm a European fishing. I'm fishing over generally a big spread of bait. I'm fishing for big fish. I want them to be able to move and graze between mouthfuls. I'm not trying to concentrate them on an area. I'm trying to scatter the bait over a large area. These fish are sort of picking and moving along, whereas the fish we're fishing for in front of a camera, because we're trying to capture all that in front of a camera, we are baiting a very, very tight area. So them fish aren't really grazing around like they would in a normal fishing situation.
It is a lot tighter.
Exactly.
Of an area.
So they're not grazing. They're almost PVA bag type fish, aren't they? Really, the way that we're sort of presenting it.
It's a concentrated area.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Whereas my European fishing, I'm fishing sort of something the size of 3 transit vans at least. You know, baiting an area, get them fish moving. Big fish need space, I think, to be able to move around and graze. So then I think you can fish with your longer hook links and stuff. So it is venue and scenario specific.
Well, maybe at some point we'll be able to put your European fishing in front of underwater cameras.
I know, just the venue.
Do you?
Yeah.
Good. And then you can put that theory to the test, can't you? Longer rigs. See if
it would be interesting.
If it is different to the fishing that we've seen.
Yeah.
So far.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
Any other underwater questions coming through, Ben?
Lots of challenge uncut, thumbs up.
Yes.
We'll put that one to Harry.
Yeah.
You have to dig through the hard drives. What interested you the most while watching the fish activity on camera? I guess, like, what's your biggest takeaway from it?
Yeah, I guess it goes back to, well, like I said earlier, though, I always knew that the fish are getting away with it. That you'd be foolish to think that a rig works 100% of the time. There is no magic rig. There's no, there is no sort of, there isn't a magic rig, is what I'm trying to get at. There isn't.
It's surprising as well how many times we get picked up and there is no indication on the buzzers or the alarms or anything like that.
Actually, I think the one biggest takeaway from that was, but then we were fishing over, it wasn't smooth gravel, but it was, what do you call it, slippery gravel? I don't know, what would you call the gravel we're fishing over in that situation?
Gravel?
Was it just normal gravel?
Polished gravel.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't.
Shallow though, wasn't it?
It was very shallow.
You're going to mention how much the lead moves, I assume.
Yeah, when I wasn't even, I mean, I was trying to sink the line and I wasn't putting hardly any tension on that line. Hardly any. The line wasn't even sort of sinking.
Yeah.
I just put the tip under the water and the lead was moving out of shot.
And that was a 4-ounce lead?
I think I mixed between 4 and 4.5.
Like that's a big lead
Yeah.
to be moving, and especially at what, 82, 83 yards?
I think that's what it was, wasn't it? Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest takeaway there. Lead moving.
What if I bring your attention to that first fish that picked up that PVA bag and it had the rig in its mouth for 5 seconds maybe?
Yeah, and that fish was, it certainly didn't look, it didn't know it had a rig in its mouth. It wasn't, I think some people maybe would have taken away from that it was trying to eject the rig. I didn't take that away at all.
I did edit the film and I've spent a lot of time looking at all of this footage and stuff. And I agree, I don't think that fish knew that there was
No.
a hook. I don't think so. It was in its mouth. The fish didn't move, so it didn't have a chance to tighten up on the rig or the rig to move side to side into its mouth and it move away from it. It just sucked it all in and then went.
And it just ejected like it would if it was feeding on silt or debris anyway, where it separates the food items from the non-edible items and regurgitates that, and it just did that with the rig. But then it went back. Well, it definitely didn't know it had its mouth because it went back and had it again, didn't it? Second time round.
Yeah.
I think the second time round, I think perhaps it knew something wasn't quite right. I think on the
Yeah,
second
it
time.
did. It did move
I
up.
haven't actually seen the video. I can't bring myself to watch it. I had enough punishment for them 3 days. I don't want to watch
You
it back
have had
again.
a lot of comments on the film, maybe slightly concerned about your mental health in that film, saying, "I hope Mark's all right," because he looked absolutely devastated at points.
I think it was just more a heavy workload more
Yeah.
than more than anything else.
Long week. Weeks.
Yeah.
Weeks.
Yeah, but no, like I said, I've always known that the fish are doing it. It is obviously a bit more of an eye opener when you see it for yourself, but I've always likened it to surface fishing where you can see firsthand what's happening, and I never thought for 1 minute that something different was happening underneath the surface. You can see them on fishing on floaters. You'll see them take hook baits, and that's why I never strike, because you see them. You'll see the hook bait disappear. You strike into nothing. That's why I pay no attention to the hook bait, and you might see that hook bait get taken in, and then it'll go under and it'll pop back to the surface. That could happen 10 times, and then finally you see an eruption on the surface, and one's finally hooked. And I knew it would be a very similar situation down there on the bottom.
Yeah. Fair play. Any other questions coming through, Ben?
Yes, well, not a question, but it's true. It was interesting to see how the lead would spring back after hitting the clip.
Yeah.
Again, because it was so shallow.
That was a big eye opener for me. How much that does spring back in shallow water.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you like when you were editing that? Were you surprised when you played the footage back?
I think we were all surprised while we were there watching it.
So I think I was hitting the clip, and the second I hit the clip, I was literally pushing the rod forward. But you're thinking 2.5 foot, you'd hit the clip and just go down immediately,
would just
and it'd be
hit the
fine.
bottom, yeah.
You know, just hit the clip. But you're having to hit the clip and then literally lunge forward. But obviously you've got stretch in the line, and at 82 yards or whatever it was, there is a little bit of elasticity, and yeah, it's going to happen. So yeah, it makes sense. I didn't think it'd be to that degree though, obviously.
No, and something I think we want to look at in future underwater films is when you are casting at that range, how much does the lead come back over 6 foot depth, 12 foot depth?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, is it exaggerated over that sort of distance, or does it come back a bit and then fall down? Like, there's lots that need to be answered with that, I think.
It's an interesting area, that, isn't it? The feeling of the lead down onto the spot where we think we're landing, as opposed to where it is actually landing.
In a normal fishing situation, though, you wouldn't need to be that accurate. I mean, you're literally trying to land it in a teacup at 82 yards.
Yeah.
That's
But if you're looking for,
that's the size of what we're trying to land on.
if you're looking at small holes in the weed at that sort of distance, then
Yeah, but you're going to feel it. You're going to know, aren't you? If you're fishing at small holes in the weed, you're going to know. You're going to feel it on the way down. You're going to know if you've landed on the money or not. You can feel it. But on gravel, when it's all the same substrate, it's going to be hard, isn't it? But you don't need to be that accurate in a normal fishing situation.
There's one come through here now. Is there a rig that Mark would never use in front of the underwater cameras?
KD rig.
I was about to say that.
It's a shit rig out there.
About that.
It is the worst rig out there.
Yeah, KD.
Yeah.
What don't you like about the KD?
I mean, I've only ever used it on one occasion. I don't know why I used it. I know it was for a magazine feature, and I got done loads. I was fishing on a small water where the fish were quite sort of finicky and tricky anyway. It's typical small water syndrome where the fish are quite, they are a lot cuter, I think, than in larger waters. And I think I was getting, I think I had what I thought was a line, and I wasn't fishing silly slack lines. I was fishing, normal semi-slack like I am now. And a little bit of an indication, and then I didn't think anything of it, just thought it was a bit of a liner. And then I know when I came to reel that rod in to reset it, the rig had moved like 20 yards. It was wow. It had been dumped in a set of pads.
Right.
And I think I hooked a few fish that session as well, and I think I lost them. I think I had more hook pulls on that session. Well, I think it was like 3 or 4 hook pulls in, and it got binned and never used again. Yeah.
Fair play. Any more coming through from the community, mate?
We have got one from the post you did earlier, the comments.
Yep.
If you could change anything about what you did on the underwater in hindsight, what would it be?
I'd like to have seen a 360 rig versus a blowback rig side by side. I think that would be the only thing. I would like to see some sort of comparison, and it'd be interesting. Like I said, I have used the 360 rig a few times in sessions since then, and I have lost a few fish on it, whereas I've not had a hook pull on a wide gape long shank in 2.5 years.
So we did also use the liner rig,
Yeah.
and that was quite effective.
Yeah. Did
If-
I have?
if
I
not-
think I only had, was it 1 or 2 pickups and a fish? I can't
I think it
remember.
was 3 pickups, and you hooked 2 fish on that rig,
Yeah.
and that was the rig we changed
Yeah. So I can't
when you
remember.
were when you were dooming a little bit.
I've like I said, I've not seen the video back.
Yeah.
We filmed this quite a long time ago as
It
well.
was end of April.
Did I get cut off or
Yeah.
something? Or
Lost one.
Did I lose one? I
and
can't remember
lost
what
one
happened.
and cut off on the back of the bar.
Yeah. Did I have 1 hook pull and 1 cut off
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah. But it did hook 2 fish,
Yeah.
and I think it had 3 pickups for that. So
Yeah.
it was probably the most, bar the 360 rig,
Yeah.
which was 1 for 1. That was the next most effective rig. Would you be using that in your fishing, or?
Well, even on like the long shank, wide gape long shanks, I do extend the shank with shrink tube. Not quite to the same effect as a line liner with a line exiting out of the tubing, but I do use that similar sort of. I think with the blowback rig with the hook extension with the shrink tube, it's similar mechanics, I think. That's another point, actually, something else I would have liked to have seen in comparison was a soft, totally supple braided hook link.
We did talk about that afterwards, didn't we?
Yeah, I'd like to have seen that.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on the completely supple braid? What was it that you were looking to?
So
to
I
see
think there
from
was a
it?
couple of occasions where I was fishing that Camatech Soft, which is a coated braid, albeit a very, very supple coated braid, where the hook bait, because I'm fishing with balanced hook baits, it was at full extension away from the lead. So any fish approaching that hook bait away from the lead, so if they're trying to suck that in from 2 inches back, that hook link's already got full extension. There's no movement in it at all. So, I mean, yeah, it's one of them things, isn't it? What are the chances of it approaching in that way? It's obviously, it can happen, can't it? It can happen. If it approaches it from the side or behind, there's still enough movement there. But if it approaches it from away, from where it's extended from, there's no movement. So yeah, I think in them situations, I would have liked to have seen
A supple.
a supple one. Yeah.
Do you think that it would have presented well casting it at 82 yards?
No, but I'm not sure how.
Is there a way around that, of casting that hook link that distance?
Obviously, you got solid bags and things like that, haven't you? Or a little stick or something. But yeah, a little tiny stick. But like I say, you're literally trying to land in a teacup at 82 yards.
But do you think
in a wind.
a supple braid, even if you weren't on a teacup, if you're on a bigger area, do you think a supple braid would land? Not to, like, obviously you've got the potential for it to tangle.
Well, I've been fishing a bit like that in this situation because of the hook baits I'm using. They're not balanced. I've been fishing with a mixture of worms and naturals. The hook link is kind of landing flat, up really, really close to the lead. It's just a shame we didn't get to see it on the underwater footage while we're here.
Yeah, not a pickup.
Not on in this instance, but yeah, it didn't bother me that the hook bait was right next to the lead. I thought there was plenty of free movement there, and it's only a shortish hook link as well. So,
And what advantage do you think that supple hook link would give
like
you?
I said, it's because whereas a coated braid is at maximum extension. Any fish approaching away, if you're fishing with a bottom bait, any fish approaching away, there's no extra. It's trying to suck it, and the hook bait can't move towards its mouth. It has to come over it, which it don't always do. If a fish comes right over the top of it, it's absolutely fine. But I think there's instances where they are sucking from an inch or two back.
So you believe that supple braid would just, because it'd end up probably in a pile,
Yeah.
it would just shoot up
Fly
into
in,
the
yeah.
back of the mouth and then
Yeah.
get a better hook.
But obviously, if it's going right over the top of it, then it's fine. But they don't always feed in that way, do they?
No.
So my old mate Nick Davis has asked, what interested you the most while watching the fish activity in front of the camera?
I guess every time I watch, not necessarily on that video, one of the things is that the fish do not spook off the rig components at all. Well, certainly not the edges rig components. Anyway, I'm not saying that's true with all of them, but yeah, I've never been one. A lot of people think, oh, the fish are going to spook off that lead, or spook off that hook link, or spook off that hook. They don't. It's all debris on the lake bed to them. They don't know what a hook is, what a lead is, what hook link is. They don't know what any of them things are. Collectively together, I think it's a different story altogether. If you've got a load of bits and bobs hanging off your rig, like a load of unnecessary clutter, I think that's a different thing. I mean, I use quite minimal. The rig itself, it is quite minimalistic, isn't it? Really, it's made up of relatively few components, and I think collectively altogether, it's just more debris or whatever on the lake bed to them.
Yeah.
So I've never ever thought that they have spooked off it, but it was interesting just to have that confirmed. There was no, them fish weren't coming in and spooking off a lead clip, for example, or spooking off a lead.
Yeah.
I think I saw one comment on my Facebook page, someone saying, did I not consider changing the pink, because there was a number of times the fish came in and spooked off the pink, but I don't ever remember a fish spooking off the pink. Obviously, people look at these videos and they interpret it differently. We all have our own interpretations, but I didn't for 1 minute see a fish come in and spook off the pink. Maybe saw a fish come down at the last minute and turn away. I didn't, but then the fish were coming back. I didn't see a fish come approach it, spook off it, and then like kick all the sediment up and not come back. Sometimes they'd approach it and just think, nah, and then turn away and swim.
Ooh.
But then,
we got a live bite. Could have a live bite here. Bobbin is set up.
Yeah, I think that's a bite, isn't it? No, it's not.
Ooh, that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there you go, guys, a great insight to the thought processes behind sort of Mark's mind, I suppose, and what he took from it, and the different questions that were put to him. It was great also having Kieran's sort of idea on it and his angle, being one of the fox divers and actually being the one responsible for the cameras going in the right place, and what he found editing the film as well. You know, he was sort of subject to all of it. You know, he actually put the film together, so he saw the bare bones of everything that happened. So it was great getting Kieran's sort of ideas and his thoughts on it as well. All in all, it was a great Q&A. I hope you enjoyed it yourself. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll be sitting down with other members of the Fox team and bringing you some more Q&As. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.